Allow me to introduce myself. I wasn't here last month because a dear friend of ours had, his wife had died several weeks before, and we thought he was doing okay. But we learned from a poem that he wrote about grief that he was really going through the mill. And so I wrote him this letter, and last month we intervened on him. He found himself getting drunk every night, and he wasn't able to write. He was watching TV. He had to drink until he passed out. So I wrote him this letter, and I kind of generalized. Well, I took the names out. I kind of arranged it in a way that nobody could tell who it's about. So I call this Letter to a Bereaved Friend. But I think maybe I should first put my glasses on. I almost always forget. Because it's good to see, particularly to read it. Letter to a Bereaved Friend. Although I have known grief, one doesn't live as long as we have without experiencing loss of significant people in our lives, friends, family, and other beloved, cherished folk. It doesn't seem to get any easier the older we become, or with the more loss we endure. And I know that I will bear more sorrow in the future. Still, I cannot say that I know exactly how you are feeling. Each kind of loss has its own particular nature. Psychologists tell us that we go through 5 stages of grief: denial, bargaining, depression, anger, and ultimately acceptance. To me, and in my experience as both bereaved and clinician, this is a one-size-fits-all generalization that does not apply to every person in all situations. However, acceptance does appear to be the final stage. In the case of my father's death, my first reaction was anger, because he had just been released from the hospital after his first heart attack, and was advised to avoid exertion. On his first morning home, he stubbornly insisted on traversing his 5-story walk-up for a newspaper, causing his second and fatal attack. While with my grandmother, who had been ill and was in hospice care, my reaction was not so much depression as sorrow, with perhaps relief over the end of her suffering. In both of these cases, and others, what has given me closure, if you could call it that, or at least peace, has been my inherent conviction that what we call death is not the end of life, but merely a normal stage in the cycle of our spirit's journey through eternity. This view does not come from religious training, but from my innate inability to believe that we come from nothing and we go nowhere. Is that all there is? Is that all there is? Is that all there is, my friend? Then let's keep dancing. Let's have a ball, if that is all that there is. My brother-in-law turned me onto a book that reinforced for me my belief. We were sitting in the post-op waiting room of the hospital right after my wife's open heart surgery, waiting to see her in the ICU, when he recommended that I read a book called Many Lives, Many Masters. It told the story of a prominent psychiatrist, his young patient, and the past life therapy that changed both their lives. The New York Times bestseller was written by Brian L. Wise, MD. It didn't change my life, but it did affirm my previously held belief. Although I have used hypnosis in age regression therapy, I still remain somewhat skeptical in this matter, as we are looking through a glass darkly. Yet, it is a good read. I gave my mother a copy on her 90th birthday. I've come to find that for most people, including me, the most difficult part of dealing with loss is feeling the so-called departed has passed from our presence. That is, we no longer have them in our life. We can no longer talk to them or see them. They've gone away. The most distressing fear may be that in time they may disappear, pass away from our memory forever. I can say for myself, I have not forgotten one of them, and believe I won't for as long as I exist. Our pain may not be so much from that person's loss of life as the loss of them in our lives. This is where the second and perhaps, no, definitely most important source of my peace, comfort, and my acceptance has originated. Insomuch as I believe that we are essentially spirit, and spirit is energy. And the knowledge that energy cannot be destroyed, but can only change form. Interesting, is it not, that to believe is to be light. Anyway, I've come to learn that there is something immutable that is left behind by all that have lived, and that thing is the memory of them. They can't take that away from me. When we all returned from my father's funeral, we sat around sharing our memories of him. Little anecdotes about him. Some made us smile, laugh, or just feel the joy of having known him. Soon I felt sorrow lift and joy descended upon us, and we weren't any longer mourning a death, but celebrating a life. And he was right there with us. It was like he was in the same house, just in a different room. They are all with me in my heart and living in my memory. I know that they would not want me to feel sad, and I don't want them to feel sad for me. What would she want for you? What do you want for her? In your poem about grief, you ask, does a hole in the heart ever heal? And you say, I want to move on, but do I really? Like, move on to what? I know that she is alive and well in your heart and in your memory of her, in your memory of all the good times, ups and downs, ins and outs, and magical moments that you shared over the many decades. Yes, it does sound like quite a ride, and you two were luckier than most. All of those moments are meant to never be forgotten. It is a story meant to be told, meant to be written, if not for publication, then for yourself. I remember you once saying how you enjoyed reading your novel about the 60s because it made you feel young. Imagine how reading a story about you and her will make you feel. But first, I think there is something that you must do, and that is to get out of that forest of funk. My first recommendation would be some form of counseling. A dear friend of ours found a bereavement group locally, and that really helped her. It is phenomenal how the process of it is powerful how the association with others who are going through the same difficulty can be into the process of healing. These groups, whether professional or self-help, are an emotionally safe place. Some people find it helpful to get out of themselves by volunteering for some community service a few days a week, like a food pantry or soup kitchen. I don't know which path will best suit you, but I do know that if you keep doing what you've been doing, you will keep getting what you've been getting. What would she want you to do? I think it is important that you keep being the person she loves.